Time to Talk Hub, and this is our podcast with myself, Vanessa, and
Hiya, Hune.
we came up with this idea really because I wanted to have a podcast that people could listen to and relate to, but also that helps and supports mental health awareness. And sort of just, it's just a safe space to talk about various different things and topics that will affect mental health.
So that's us, guys. Each week we're going to have a different topic, which we're going to try and make it a bit more fun, and then we're going to get into the nitty gritty. And we're also always going to have a special guest, which this podcast episode, it is Kelsey Bartlett, is it?
Yes.
That's right. I always say it wrong. So she is a and I'm going to say this word wrong, nutritionalist PT, and she's lovely. So I can't wait for you to hear that. But first of all, we're going to talk about self-care.
Yes.
So what's your self-care, Vanessa?
My self-care, well, I mean, I've got quite an intensive self-care plan, which I'm going to go into a little bit later on in the podcast and how to create that for yourself. My biggest self-care has to be music. It's something that, it's for me, I really resonate with people that say that music is a religion for them. Some people praise, I listen to music. And it's my escape. It's something that can lift my mood instantly and motivate me. So that's part of my self-care plan, and fresh air, going out, those sorts of things are really important to me. What about you?
So yeah, mine is I love my routine. Like, I'm just a routine freak, I am, and I absolutely love it. So me doing my run, having my morning coffee, doing my moisturizer, toner, like going in that order. Afterwards, I'll just be like, oh, ready for the day, or ready to go to bed. Do you know what I mean? Because it can self-care on any part of the day. It doesn't have to be when people think it is the minute that you get up. Yeah, you can, but it can be any part, can't it, really?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, self-care, this is the thing, is that people talk about self-care. And I think that there's this element of people don't understand that it's not just about a routine, and it's not just about what you do from morning to night. Self-care equally is about what you would do if you were feeling anxious, and it's all of these things collectively that is about your caring for yourself. And it's something that's very hard for people, the percentage of people, especially within the mental health sort of, that suffer within that sort of spectrum, is putting themselves and their self-care to the forefront. And I absolutely love I'm loving some of the adverts for the hair dye, for a very well-known hair dye company. I'm not going to name names, but they have the two of the most recent ones I've watched is with Holly Willoughby and Eva Longoria, and I just love it. And Eva especially talks about self-care, and that, and she's kind of incorporated that into the advert about, her covering her greys, and I love it because, I realize that I am not special in the fact that I have quite a few grey hairs myself, and that sexy women and powerful women and anybody can incorporate self-care to what it means for them.
No, I completely agree. I love that there is a lot of adverts at the moment who have gone into self-care and made it more fun, accepting.
Yes.
Oh, there's Ted the doggy.
I know. I do apologise, everyone. I will. I do have my dog, Teddy. He's my therapy dog, and I don't know where he is, but he'll be around somewhere. And every so often, you will hear some various noises. If you hear a pig oinking, it's not me. It is actually Teddy. One of his favourite toys is a duck and a pig. But the duck comes to bed every night. So I will apologise, and I will, make you aware now. You may hear some odd funny noises, and it isn't me. So
love that.
I've been on the phone before now, and sort of chatting to somebody, and there's been this horrendous screeching oink next to me, and I didn't actually know what to say. When it's a business call, and I just thought, I'm just gonna go, just style it out. And then he kept doing it, and I was like, I'm so sorry, that isn't me making those noises. It's the dog.
Imagine I just randomly make these noises, okay. Everyone meet Teddy. So you
Yeah.
probably hear him that other guest of every episode.
Yeah. um, right. So you did some research, didn't you, this week about self-care? I do apologise. Just bear with me a second. And so,
COVID, don't you worry.
let me just give it-
While Vanessa goes and sorts out Teddy, I just did some research of what some famous people use as their self-care and what they say. So when I did some research, I saw that Emma Watson said, I have a bath every single day of my life. And if I can have 2 or 3, then that's amazing. And then Beyonce she says, we have to care about our bodies and what we put in them. Women have to have the time to focus on their mental health, time to take for themselves spiritually and without guilt or selfishness. And then going back to the men, Barack Obama says, change will not come if we wait for some other person or other times. We are the ones who are seeking it. So he's on about just like, you got to love yourself, darling. Just got to do it. Yeah, so then I did a little bit of research into what males do for self care because I feel like everyone always thinks it's a woman thing to do. And okay, we do, we pride in it, we really do. But men do too, in probably the same ways or maybe a bit of different. So I tried to range it a little bit. So I talked to like a 50-year-old builder who's a father and a husband, and he said that he just absolutely loves doing DIY. If he's stuck in his shed or in his van or in the house, he's happy. And he says he always has the radio on, and a hot shower will always just chill him out when he's feeling a little bit. So I was like, that's fair enough. That's lovely.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And then my housemate is like you'd say like a typical gaming younger lad in the city, and he says he just loves gaming. He just says that makes him happy. Good food, and a coffee in his hand. And I was like, that's good as well. And then so I arranged it a little bit, and I got in touch with a 30-year-old male who's a father, who works at an office job, and he's got mental health problems quite severely. But he says that he doesn't drink, he doesn't do drugs, he has a balanced diet. He started with COVID doing 5 to 6 times a week of exercise, and he said he's never felt as better than he has now. And he has a counsellor, and he likes to read self-help books because he says it makes him understand what he's going through, which I thought was really, really good. And then I talked to a non-binary, and they said that they love watching programs where there's similar people, like on YouTube, where they can watch queers or trans, and then they don't feel alone. They feel like they've got a safe place. They also said to take some time away from social media because they said that sometimes they'll just be on the phone all the time, and that's not self-caring. But
No.
take a step back, put the phone down, and just sit and chill. And I thought that was brilliant as well. So it was the people that I got in touch with. And I know there's a huge more variety, but it just shows that males as well. So it's not just us females that do it, and it's beautiful.
It is. I 100% agree with you there. And I think there needs to be more talk about men and understanding that self-care is not even just, sort of moisturizer on your skin. And you speak to a lot of men and they're kind of like, well, I'm not into sort of getting my eyebrows waxed or putting moisturizer on every night. I'm quite a rugged man. And and it's understanding that actually self-care, the wording self-care is about what you do to feed your soul and how you go about resetting your day. And even thinking about the frontline workers at the moment, we're going to be having some guests in from different frontline services, firefighters, that sort of thing. And they will all say the same. It's about putting back what you've put out into the world on that day, the caring, the stress, the loss, or it's just sometimes we get so wrapped up, men and women, regardless of your gender as well. We get so wrapped up in sort of working and striving for this and meeting these deadlines that society says that we have to meet, which is just, don't even get me started. That's a whole different podcast episode on that. That we burn out. We burn out our inner energy, and we burn out I mean, I'm quite philosophical anyway, but we burn our souls out, and we have nothing left to give. And that's what self-care is for me. It's putting that back in. It's replenishing. It's replenishing the car with fuel when it runs out, and that's
Don't you? So why don't you give yourself an MOT? Do you know what I mean?
exactly. So yeah. So I mean, what would the kind of things? What does self-care mean to you?
To me,
Yeah.
so self-care to me, I think sometimes, like I say, I am a busybody. I am a complete busybody. Like I never really sit down, and when I do, it's asleep. So I have been. I literally, that's it. I'm like, okay, bedtime, done. That's me now, self-care. And I have taken a big step back, mainly when we said we were going to do it on this. And I really, really thought about it. And I do think it is just taking the time out of your day, and not at any time of the day, to to just realize that you do need to love yourself. Do you know what I mean? Even if you don't love yourself, there's always something that you will love deep down. But mine's just my routine. Again, I need to get out of it, really. I've been just too much of a routine. If I break that routine, I'm like, oh, I can't cope. Do you know what I mean?
But that in itself is your self-care, because you know that your anxiety will be increased if you are out of your routine. I always find if my anxiety is quite high, and obviously I do have a panic disorder, so there are certain things that will trigger it. I will go and line up all the tins in the cupboard.
Oh, good. I'm well, as people may notice from this routine thing, I have OCD, and
Yeah.
yeah, I cleaning. I love cleaning. Oh God, I could clean my life away. I could.
Yeah. And that kind of helps me. And I think it's just that order. And I think when you feel like everything's a bit chaotic around you, when you, even if it's something as simple as lining up all the chickpeas in a line and lining up all your chopped tomatoes in a line, which is what I do, you do that, it kind of refocuses your brain to think, well, I've kind of controlled that, and I've done that, and that's in order. Again, it's a sort of medicinal way of looking after and refocusing your mind away from your anxiety. So no, I 100% get you there. I'm a bit mad on washing. I love washing. I do. I love it.
Oh, I can't have, like, in my washing basket. There's like 6 items. I'm like, needs to be a wash on. It's like, I'm
I'm
built to
exactly
deal
the
with
same.
this.
I'm exactly the same. Yeah, and especially now that, we may not be able to go out, but I love pegging washing out in the summer on the line. It always just smells that much fresher. And yeah, so I get quite excited if I've got even just a half a load. It goes on the half a load setting. That the setting nobody really ever uses, because generally people don't. I use it a lot.
But yeah, so I'm thinking, let's
Yes.
get into the nitty gritty of
Okay.
the real. Well, every self care plan is real, but what
Yeah.
people don't know about, I feel like, Vanessa, you need to just make people aware of it and make me aware, because I feel like from you just asking me then, what is my self care plan? I actually, as you may have noticed, went I don't know, and I actually don't know. Now I'm really thinking that I don't know. So I want to hear about this, and the listeners, it's going to help. So go for it. I'm listening.
Okay. So I remember the first time, and there'll be people listening to this today, and they'll be thinking, why are they banging on about a self-care plan? And I was a bit like that as well. And it was only when I was admitted into hospital last year that again, they're sort of talking about my self-care plan. I was like, I don't have, what do you mean by self-care plan? And within a mental health element was what I'm going to talk about first, because it kind of all feeds in, is it's really analyzing everything that kind of incorporates your mental, it causes your mental health to get worse, get better, that sort of thing. And there's kind of like a couple of topics, so I'm going to talk about them, and I'm hoping that, you know, if you obviously are wanting to do a self-care plan, I'm going to do a template that people can email the email address, and I'll send it out to them. You know, there's no charge for any of that. It's because it's all about empowering people to be able to get on that road of recovery. So within your self-care plan, the first thing you want to be looking at is, what are your triggers? What are the things that perhaps will send you into an anxious state? What are the things that make you feel very uncomfortable? What makes you feel sad? You know, so put, you know, and it doesn't matter, because this is your self plan. If you wanted to write 50 things, write 50 things. What's more important is that you're starting to sort of get an idea of you, of who you are and your mental health. And you will find, I think, as you sort of start to work, and obviously the hub is about supporting people finding the right help. As you start to sort of work and get that support and sort of, I talk about being on recovery. You can't necessarily ever recover from something that you potentially could have for the rest of your life. So don't ever think, and I hope none of the readers or listeners ever think that I'm trivializing some of your lifelong mental health illnesses. I'm not. What I'm saying is that I'm on recovery because I was in crisis. And so now I'm on that journey of kind of learning the skills I need to live with my illness and still have that life that I am productive and make a difference and have an enjoyable life. So, and that's just where the sort of self-care plan comes in. So I made a list of all my triggers. And you may find, as like I say before, sorry, just reiterating because I can go off on a tangent. As you're getting the support and the help that you sort of along your road and along your journey, you'll notice that those will decrease because you're increasing that window of resilience, which, you know, is important for mental health. It's those sort of triggers that, you know, even though you do get triggered, I know how to deal with that now, so it's not so much of a trigger. So the other thing, the other part of it that you're going to be looking at is, what are the early warning signs that your body gives you? So what do you notice about yourself? Do you have specific thoughts? Do you feel a certain way? Do you get physical sensations? Do you shake? I shake. Physically will shake. Does your heart race? And do you find that there's certain things that you might like to, you know, you might do? Do you sort of find a dark corner? Do you stare off? Because I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, so I do tend to zone out. You know, and it's kind of just writing down anything that you know that is linked directly to a feeling with regards to your mental health. You've then got another element that you want to sort of look at, and it's what other people tell you they notice when they they see you becoming triggered, because you may not realize that you're having those symptoms because you're in that state, that sort of heightened state. Then the other thing, so that's sort of your red and amber of your self-care plan. So your red is your triggers, your amber's sort of what can I be seeing and sort of looking for in myself. And then you're going to be looking at what are the things that you can be doing. So what could you know, at the end of the day, your recovery, your mental health is your responsibility. And nobody is, you know, I want to support. The reason why I started the hub is to give people the support that they need, link them with the people that can help them, but I can't do it for them. So, you know, it's very much this is what you should be doing to protect yourself and to safeguard yourself. So, you know, what can you do? Listen to music. Is there anything that you find in particular that you find soothes or calms you? Go for a walk, go for a bath, go for a nap. You know, drawing, writing, anything like that you find actually refocuses your emotions. You want to be putting it there. And then you want to be looking at things that, if you were in an outside setting and you start to feel that you're being triggered, what could you do to distract yourself? And those are sort of things that, you know, grounding, which I have shared a little bit about on the Facebook page about grounding techniques, about things that you can do. Another thing you can always do is have a necklace or something that you helps you refocus or ground that has an emotional significance to you when you're going out. Make sure you've got that on, because that could, again, playing with that can help ground you back into the real sort of present moment. And then you're going to kind of look at what can others be, what could others do. So your close support network, your family and your friends that are going to spend a lot of time around you, and sort of probably are going to experience moments where you're sort of having to sort of refocus yourself. What could they be doing? Because you know, a lot of people don't know how to support their loved one with their mental illness, because they don't know what to do. And it's silly, because you know, you kind of think, well, when you're in that, sometimes you think, I just want somebody to do this, I just want somebody to do that, and then that gets you even more upset that they're not doing it. But it's because they don't know. So again, what could they do? You know, if you wanted a hug at that point, make sure you write that on your self-care plan. What do you find is not helpful? So if you're particularly triggered by physical touch, you know, then make sure you put that on, so that your close network of friends and family know that when you're feeling like that, you don't want to have people invading your personal space. And that's important for me. Like, I don't want people in my personal space. But I have now learned how to vocalize that. So if I find somebody is invading my space and I'm feeling a bit anxious and a bit, I will actually say, would you mind just giving me a little bit of space? I can still chat to you, but I just need to keep my personal space free. And there's nothing wrong with that. As long as you say it in a polite, respectful way, you're not being rude, you're just protecting yourself. You're not increasing your anxiety because you're trying to please everyone else. Because at that point, it's you that matters the most. So other things that you can be looking at is sort of one of the last things you want to be looking at is, how can I make my environment safe? So if you've worked through your red triggers, your amber early warning signs, you've now in your green, you're doing all of these things that you've put on your plan to help reduce that moment, and yet you still feel that you potentially feel unsafe, you need to then make sure that you've got that plan in place on how to protect and safeguard yourself. And we are going to do an episode separately about the various different coping mechanisms that people with mental health are prone to do. And the reason why I'm not going to touch on it in this episode is because it does need to come with a warning. We are going to be talking about things that potentially trigger people. And I think that's something that we need to talk about on a separate level. But obviously, what can I do to make my environment safe? So do you have somebody who you could call? If you feel that you're not safe in the house, do you have a neighbor you could go and have a coffee with? Or, you know, so it's all of those things, and it's putting those things in place, not because you'll need them, it's so that if you do need them, they're in place. And then the last two things you want to talk about is, it's always good when you've finished off, you know, because, you know, make sure that when you're doing your safety plan, you know, you may be triggered by writing these things. I know when I first wrote my first safety plan, cried for the whole day, because I was talking about triggers. It was, you know, about things that were upsetting for me. But I felt better once I put this into place. So again, make sure that you've got that support when you are putting your plan in place. You know, please don't don't do anything at any point, and that's really important. Don't ever do anything that you think you're not ready to do, or, you know, you're having a particularly emotional day and you feel that if you did this, it would trigger you to feel even worse. I'm not asking that, you know, anybody to do anything that could risk sort of impacting their mental health in a negative way. But this is a positive. And I will honestly, hand on heart, say I sat in the hospital bed in crisis, and when I did this, I felt more empowered. I felt empowered that I could handle crisis moments. I could handle those triggers better because I had my plan. So again, you know, you want to be ending it off with something positive. So, you know, what are your positive goals for the future? What are the things that you'd like to? I'm not saying. What is so important is, please don't put a timeline. Okay, don't put that pressure on yourself. I'm so against pressure and timelines and expectations of what other people say you should do. This is your personal journey. Your life is your personal journey. So again, write down a couple of things, even if it's just something as simple as learn to cook or, you know, anything like that. It's, you know, it's always good to have a little bit of a positive. And then what you're going to really want to have is a list of people that you can rely on for support. So this might be your CM, you know, your mental health team, community mental health team. It might be a key worker, a social worker. It might be a psychiatrist. But you want to have a list of those people because you don't want to be looking for numbers and that sort of thing. So you want that on your self-care plan. So you want to have a name, how they are, and what that you and that person have agreed as to how they can support you. So I came up with this idea of the traffic light system. Nearly said robots then. Traffic light system, the South African thing that. So it's a traffic light system, and because I personally know what it's like to be in that space, I also know that you very unlikely are going to say, I need help, because there's a saying that a wonderful man that I met and just really got on with and sort of trains hostage negotiators, and he said this quote, and he's agreed to let me use it, is there's a difference between needing help and wanting help. And that was really prolific for me, because being somebody, a service user of the mental health service, when I needed the help, I didn't ask for it. But when I asked for it and I wanted that help, I could ask for it then. But at the moment that I desperately needed somebody to help me, I had almost given up on myself. So this is when I came up with this idea of having the traffic light system. And this may be something that you can do within your family and your support network. The traffic light system is a red, yellow, and a green, yellow, and red. So even if you just text a green heart to that person, and they will know you're okay. So at any point, you know, you're sort of you're checking in. I know I sort of check in daily with people now, so that they, you know, they know I'm okay. If you're having you do have that support, you know, that green heart. If you say amber, you can then discuss with them ahead of time. You know, if I send you an amber heart, it means I'm okay, but I'm not okay. Yeah. And then it's a case of, right, well, what could I do? So then it's very much a two-way conversation. Now that person should know then, well, if I get a yellow heart, what would I be doing? So do I call them? Do I you know, send a text and say, you know, are you okay? Do you need any help? Like, you know, and that, all of those things. When you send a red heart or a red icon of some description that you're going to send over to those people, is you saying to that person, I'm really not okay. And I am really struggling, and I am really low, and I potentially could be a risk or harm to myself. And at that point, that is when your safety plan that you've arranged with that support network kicks into place. So you call your crisis lines, they will physically come to the house and check on you. You know, so again, it's, you know, you go and stay with a family member till you feel better. You know, and it's having that. And I always think it's like you say about routine. If you're empowered with a plan or a solution, even if you don't need to use it, it's still that reassurance that it's your safety net. It's going to catch you when you fall. And that's really what I wanted to say. The nitty gritty of your safety plan is that, you know, and then as you once you've got the bones of it, you can then start to build on it, the foundation of it. So then you can start to, you know, you may then discover that you enjoy drawing, and that could go on your safety plan. So it's about, you know, it's very much about having your safety net, but also developing the skills that you need to be able to sort of go about your everyday.
I think that's really, really, really good. You know, it's actually, I think that's going to benefit a lot of people. it's easy. It's an easy way that you put out as well. Mainly the red, amber, green, or red, yellow, green. I think that's a really, really good way. We've all got a phone, and even if you haven't got a phone, there will always be a way that you can do it. I think that's. Thank you so much, Vanessa, for this, because I feel like a lot of the listeners, not just because of COVID, but I think of daily life, because life is still going to go back to what we think will be normal. I mean,
Yeah.
anyone could see me right now, but they're not going to be able to. I'm doing quote marks and what quote marks normal is going to be after this, because I don't even think that we will ever go back to normal. I feel like life's now moving and it's all new, which is
Yeah.
beautiful. Beautiful. But I think this is a really, really good plan and stuff. So, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I don't want to I don't want to overface this episode, because, I want to really the focus be, and I want to be able people to listen and actually think, oh, that's like step one. And but no, I think once you have finished the only thing I would say is, when you have you're happy with your self-care plan, it's very important to share that with your support network. Everybody who is on, on that journey, that network, that support is so important, and everybody needs to know their part that they're going to play in supporting you. They're not going to do it for you, but they will be there to stand beside you. And it's, sharing that. And if you're unable to do that, because I know that we are still there's a big stigma to do with mental health, and I hope that, and it has improved, but it's still very much there. Even if you couldn't share it with your friend, with your family, have a friend that, and if you don't, then, share it with your community mental health worker, your social worker, your support worker. There's no shame in having anybody in your life who you can share that plan with. And actually, it looks like it's a very positive thing to do within the mental health service, for people to see that you have been working on your own self-care plan. But everybody's at a different stage in their journey. So, it's just about that one step. That's all you've got to take, one step, and then you take that next step. And, I'm kind of 10 steps in. I've still got a long way to go. I still have my down days. I still, but my safety plan is what I go to now. And I'm able to focus myself a lot better on those days, because I know what's okay, because I got my net. And there is also nothing wrong with turning off your phone. I loved that comment about social media. I do use social media quite a lot because of, awareness and all of those things. But there are also times where I just put my phone down and put the telly on, because it's all consuming. And it's, sometimes you also feel that pressure to pretend that everything's okay. Everyone's lives on social media looks amazing. And that then puts more pressure on yourself. So, take some time away from social media if you can. I'm almost sure that in at least in a few more years' time, we're going to have to start have addiction meetings for social media, because people are becoming obsessed and addicted. And, pick it as soon as you wake up in the morning, you go on Facebook. As soon as you sit down, you're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And it's a great tool, don't get me wrong. I think social media in its own right is a great tool. And can you imagine going through lockdown without social media at the moment? Contacting your friends, checking in on family and members that may be in other parts of the world. But I just think there needs to be a balance, and it's so important to balance everything in your life.
No, I completely agree. Like, it is a lifesaver, but also the devil. It's both. But that's just life. You're gonna have a little angel on your shoulder and a devil, and that is what social media is like sometimes.
Yeah.
If that's all you wanted to say, I think this leads really, really nicely on to our guest speaker, who is going to tell us about how food and exercise can help in your self-care plan.
Yeah.
So we're going to pass over, and it will be a previous recording of when we chatted to her. So I hope that you enjoy it.
Okay, so the guest we've got today chatting amongst our topic of self-care is Kelsey Bartlett, and she's going to answer some questions and talk a little bit about nutrition and exercise and how important that is to your mental health and can help improve your mental health, especially at the moment within the COVID crisis. So welcome, Kelsey.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. Could you just introduce yourself to the listeners and tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to get into nutrition?
Yeah, of course. So I've been into fitness and nutrition and my training for many years now. And I've just always realised how important it is to my own life. I've decided to make a bit of a living out of it and help other people. And one of the main ways that I really do try and differentiate myself is that I really focus on the mental health side of the training and nutrition. I think it's so important. You can't have a healthy body without a healthy mind. If anything, the healthy mind is even more important because you're never going to get to where you want to go if you've not got the right mindset. And especially at the moment, with all of this going on with COVID, healthy mindset is more important than ever. So I'm really happy to be on and try and promote and try and talk about how it's so linked to nutrition and fitness, this mindset.
That's amazing. Thank you. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think it is very interlinked. And I've certainly have seen a difference when I've put the same amount of sort of focus on my nutrition and sort of what I'm putting into my body when as now that I'm in recovery and sort of working through my own sort of safety plan and self-care plan. Um, so what I wanted to ask you and ask you to talk a little bit about is obviously, there's about 1 million people statistically, or that was at least discussed in the media yesterday, that are struggling to put food on the table. There's been a mass amount of people that have lost their jobs, so people haven't got a lot of food, money for food. And I think this is, for me, I think there's a stigma that healthy eating and nutritious eating costs a lot of money. So can you talk about, sort of some ideas and if you have any tips that people can use to kind of still be able to eat nutritionally, but obviously on a budget?
Yeah, definitely. There is so many ways to eat healthy on a budget. When I say healthy, I'm just talking about a diet that is rich in whole and nutrient dense foods. Now, this means foods that are not highly processed, foods that are not refined, so refined sugars that you do find, are more expensive. People get the impression that that's the cheapest way to eat because that's the sort of cheapest thing to go for. That's not always the case. If you're going for whole nutrient dense foods, that's things like potatoes, pasta, rice, that isn't expensive to buy from the supermarket, especially if you're just buying like plain potatoes, plain rice, and you're going to cook that yourself. It's just about having that little bit of effort to put into the cooking. And if you're prepared to do that, then you can definitely eat healthy on a budget. It's when you're trying to opt for cheap but already prepared food, that's when you're going to end up buying something that's not the nutrient dense style that you want to go for. So yeah, just that little bit of preparation time and cooking time is what it takes. That's all it takes, really.
I've been
Yeah,
absolutely.
there's so many students that'll be listening to this and they'll be crying into their pot noodles thinking, oh my goodness, this means now I can't have any of that. But did you have a question, Thea?
I was just going to say that really because even though a lot of stuff is easier that you can put in the microwave, it is just putting that extra bit of time in. I think that's brilliant, and it's just an easy tip that in pasta and potatoes, they can last loads of meals. Instead of you buying one pack for one meal, you're buying a pack that will last you numerous meals. So
Yeah, even cheaper.
that's really good advice. You don't even think about stuff like that, do you? But it's brilliant.
So one more question on that, obviously, because, the reason I'm asking this is because I know that there'll be people listening to this going, but I'm not supposed to eat potato and I'm not supposed to eat rice because carbs make you fat. So, so what would you say to those people that are following all those faddish diets and, I mean, to be fair, I do try and, I grew up in South Africa. So in South Africa, we don't have a very big wheat. A lot of our pasta is maize. A lot of our crisps are maize. So I do react quite badly to a large amounts of pasta since I've moved here. I've been here 21 years now, and it still affects me. So I do try and eat more clean when I can and I can afford it. But I will eat potatoes and rice over pasta, just because it's not as irritated on my stomach. But there are a lot of people that would be like, oh, they're telling us not to eat carbs, but you're telling us to eat carbs. So what advice would you have for those people?
Okay, well, for one thing, even vegetables are carbs, and people don't seem to have the idea that vegetables are bad. So, especially with the cheaper point as well, frozen veg is the best way to go about that. And there is nothing wrong with frozen veg. It is less nutrient dense than normal, like fresh veg. So definitely opt for the frozen one if you're on a budget. And going back to the carbs though, that sort of mindset people have, it is very common. I can't eat carbs because I'm going to gain weight, or I can't eat carbs if I want to lose weight. It is not the case at all, and people really need to look into the facts and the logic behind this. So to be losing weight, you need to be in a calorie deficit. It really makes no difference if that calorie deficit is produced from eating carbs, fats, protein. As long as you're in a calorie deficit, you're going to lose weight. Now, for some people, eating carbs is a really, big part of their life socially and just mentally. So I really believe that to have a diet that is sustainable and maintainable, you can't be doing something that you're not going to keep up. So cutting out carbs is something that for a lot of people, they're not going to be able to maintain it for various reasons, for their own mental health and for their, social sort of aspects of life. And I believe that to be on a diet, you've got to have something sustainable. That's the most important thing, because these fad diets, they're a waste of time, because you might lose a bit of weight and then you're going to put it back on again when you start eating the carbs. Yeah. And from the science point, when people lose a lot of weight when they drop their carbs, it's not actually because they've lost fat, and weight and fat are completely different things. So when people step on the scale after a week of not eating carbs and they think, oh my goodness, I've lost 3 pounds, this is amazing, I should have cut carbs out years ago. And that's actually water weight, because what happens when you eat carbs in your body, every single molecule that is stored in your glycogen stores is attached to 2 to 3 molecules of water. And what happens when you stop eating carbs, your body uses this glycogen for fuel, and it uses all of the glycogen up, and that's also attached to a lot of water. So the water weight that you've lost is not actually fat. So people think that they've lost all this weight, and actually it's not actually the fat that they've lost. And that's what I would imagine that they were going for, to try and lose. So a lot of the time people start eating carbs again and they'll pile it all back on, and it's just a fad diet that they've not managed to get that sustainable weight and keep it off. So it's a shame when people get into those fad diets, because it's kind of just like a roller coaster and they never manage to stay where they want to get. And I believe that what I really promote for all of my clients and my business is, whatever we're going to do, we're going to get you where you want to be, and then we're going to find a way to make sure that you can sustain that, and make sure that my clients take away long-term mindset changes that keep them where they want to be. And that's what I sell a lot as well, the long term. Like I sell the knowledge and experience. So I don't just say, this is what you want to eat, this is what you want to do, and then do it, you'll lose the weight. I actually say, this is what you're going to learn. I'm going to tell you why I'm telling you to eat that, and I'm going to tell you why. And that's the reason that they'll know what to do that in the future, and they can take it away and use it for the rest of their life. And it's the mindset that I think is the most important part.
That sounds amazing. I mean, I will just before, I've got one more question on that topic, because people will want to know, but within mental health, and I personally can relate to this, a lot of mental health medication, for some reason, you do put weight on. And there's quite a few people I know that will not want to take their medication because they don't want to put weight on. Or, you know, there's just people like me that just embrace it and think, you know, I'm going to be an Amazonian shaped woman from now on. But yeah, so what advice would you have for those kind of people that are like, well, you know, my mental health is stable, I'm taking this medication, but I can feel I'm putting weight on it, you know, sort of what are you doing? Would that still benefit them?
It really does depend. If they need to go on the medication and that's the only option they've got, then they need to be able to create the mindset that they are doing what is best for them and what is best for their health. And that is the most important part. And if it means putting a few pounds on, and in the long run overall, that is actually better for them and it's going to benefit their health, then it's the acceptance that that might be the price that they have to pay. However, I'm sure that if they do have the right mindset, they can avoid putting a lot of the weight on, because a lot of people will just kind of accept, oh, I'm putting weight on now because I'm on this medication. And they kind of give up with the diet and they give up with trying because they think, oh, it's inevitable, so why should I bother? But that's not the right attitude to have. If you sort of have that it's going to happen anyway attitude, then you're not going to be able to fight against it. But there is a lot of hope.
Carry on, sorry. I'm just taking the squeaky toy off the dog.
That is fine.
Carry on, this is brilliant.
That's fine. I was just saying that there is a lot of ways to get around that, and actually working with someone who has the mindset of, no, I know I'm on this medication, but we're not going to put the weight on and we're going to keep it off and we're going to keep training and keep eating right. They are going to be a lot better off and put a lot less weight on than someone who's got the attitude of, oh, it's inevitable, so I might as well eat the whole bag of biscuits anyway. And it's the same mindset when people are on a diet, regardless if they're on any medication, just, you know, anybody who's had, you know, a pack of biscuits and then they think to themselves, oh no, the whole weekend is ruined, I'm just going to go off the rails and eat whatever the hell I want because I've messed up my diet anyway. And the thing is, you can't mess up your diet. And that sounds a bit weird, but hear me out. You can't actually mess up your diet. What you have to do if you have a bad meal, a bad day, is get back on track and you accept it and you put it behind you. And it's about moving forward and not moving backwards, because when you're looking backwards into the past and things that have happened, that is going to be a massive block to allowing you to get anywhere, to get where you want to be. So you've got to be looking forward. And if you have a bad meal, great, just accept it. Don't beat yourself up about it. Don't increase the feelings of guilt, because all that's going to lead to is more guilt and more, you know, anxious and anxiety and bad negative thoughts. And it's just going to breed negativity and breed more and more negative thoughts. You're beating yourself up about eating something bad. For anybody who has had a bad meal or a bad day, the best advice I could give is accept it. Maybe you've been out on a nice, you know, maybe not right now during COVID, but maybe you've been out on a meal with your family, or you've celebrated something, you know, and you've had a whole, you know, dessert, you've had the whole lot, you've had wine. Great, you had a good time, you had a great night. And sometimes mental health is even more important than your diet for one day, because overall your health is not just your diet, not just your physical, it's your mental. And you sometimes need that night out, you sometimes need to have that dessert after dinner just to feel like you're not restricting yourself. So just forget it, don't dwell on it and move forward. And the same mindset, then going back to the medication, it's not having that mindset of, oh, sack it, it's inevitable, I've ruined my diet, or it's inevitable, I'm going to put the weight on. It's about keeping pushing forward and not looking backwards.
Love that. I have Eat Shit Sunday.
But not Monday. It didn't roll into Monday.
I eat healthy Monday to Saturday, and then on Sunday, I call it Eat Shit Sunday, and I can then have, you know, my roast potatoes and those sorts of things in like cooked and goose fat and cake after my dinner or whatever. and it's my eat shit Sunday, so I'm allowed. I allow myself to have that day where if I wanted to eat a bar of chocolate, I could.
Yes.
But then because I do that,
it's great that you allow yourself and you don't have that restricted mindset, because that's what leads to binge eating a lot. And you know, binge eating can actually come about from restricting yourself. So it's great that you have that day where you feel like you're not restricted and you're having whatever you want, and that is so healthy.
One more thing last thing I wanted to just ask you to explain for everybody that's listening. Can you explain in a minute though, because I need to get my charger, is what a calorie deficit is?
So a calorie deficit is a phrase that is thrown around all the time as if everybody's expected to know what it was, and it's not always the case. So a calorie, to start with, is a measurement of energy. So imagine like a mile is a measurement of distance. A calorie is a measurement of energy. So a mile, whether it's on the road, in water, on sand, it's still a mile, no matter what happens. So the same with a calorie. So a calorie from a donut is the same as a calorie from broccoli. Now, what the difference is between those two is something called the macronutrients, or the macros for short, as people call it. And this is how much of that food is made up of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. So this is the sort of macro, language that people use. Now, back to the calories. Being in a calorie deficit means that you're actually eating, or you're expending more energy than you are actually eating. Does that make sense? There's more energy going out than is coming in. So more energy is going out in terms of the calories that your body uses just to function on a daily basis. That will be your resting metabolic rate. And then there's the energy that your body uses for exercise. There's something called NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And that's the calories that your body is burning just from doing little things, like fidgeting, walking around, your daily sort of energy expenditure. And then there's actual exercise, which can then be increased to increase the amount of calories that you burn through the day. Then you've got the calories that you eat, and that's the energy in. So what you've got to ensure to be in a calorie deficit is that you are expending and using more calories than you are ingesting and actually eating in your diet. And that will put you in a calorie deficit. And that is the only way, literally the only way, that you are going to lose weight.
Oh, we were wondering, is there any foods that can benefit your mental health, like can give you a boost for like serotonin and stuff like that? So we were just wondering if there is anything.
Yeah, completely. So eating foods that benefit your serotonin and stuff like that is nutrient dense whole foods that are full of vitamins and minerals. So things like vegetables, things like whole grains, nuts, dairy, eggs, everything that is a whole nutrient dense food is going to make sure that your brain and your body can function most effectively, because your brain is actually, fueled by the things that you eat. So it's made up of the things that actually, the chemicals, sorry, I should say, that your brain uses are made up of amino acids, and the brain actually needs these to regulate its thoughts and feelings. So if you're eating nutrient dense whole foods, your brain is going to be functioning much, much more efficiently, and it's going to increase your feelings of well-being and make sure that your body is functioning a lot better.
That is, I never knew that them foods did that. That's absolutely amazing that something so simple can help you out. So would there be any that you would say are the main ones you'd have? So if someone was feeling quite down and stuff, is there any that you would say, okay, these are the ones I would focus on more than the others?
Yeah, definitely going for your like oats, seeds, nuts, whole grains, things like even dark chocolate. That's very beneficial as well. Making sure you're getting your fruit in. Your vegetables, no matter what kinds, they are all full of vitamins and minerals, and that is going to definitely increase your feelings of well-being and increase your own like bodily functions. The way that you feel, it will improve your mood. And rather than actually eating refined foods and processed foods, studies have actually been done that show that they lead to feelings of anxiety and depression if your diet is rich in processed refined foods.
Oh,
I did not know that.
no, I don't.
See, because a lot of people go, oh, it makes me feel happy when they have it, but it must be like almost like when you have alcohol, it can make you feel happy until afterwards. So that that's new to me. That is.
Yeah, well, the thing is as well with all of the refined foods that people feel good when they first eat them can also lead to feelings of guilt, and that's something that could affect mental like health with regards to feeling bad about yourself and negative thoughts, and then they come after, and people might have a load of chocolate and then afterwards they starve themselves because they feel like they shouldn't have had it. So it can be, if you're not in the right mindset to eat it, it can be detrimental to, future mindset.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I think as well, eating regularly is important to keep your blood sugar stable, because that also will make sure that your brain's functioning. And another thing that the brain needs is actually fats. Omega-3s and omega-6s are key for brain function. And people sometimes avoid fats because they have the mindset that fats are going to make you fat. But that is not the case with the carbs as well. Carbs are going to make me fat. They are not going to make you fat. And fats are something that is actually really important to have in your diet, even more so than carbohydrates, because they're a key component for brain function. So foods that are really good fats that you should be eating are oily fish. If you're not having oily fish about 3 times a week, then I would definitely recommend supplementing some omega tablets for sure. Things like nuts, avocados, seeds, full fat dairy, and eggs are really, really good for your brain to function. So definitely going to benefit your mental health and your feelings and your thought processes.
I love that. I love avocado and I love eggs. I don't like oily fish.
Love avocado. Avocado is really, really good, not just for, the fats that it contains as well, but it actually does help regulate your hunger. So it promotes a hormone that helps regulate your hunger. So it is scientifically proven to be very beneficial if you are trying to lose some weight. It can be a really good thing to add to your diet.
Oh,
Very.
thank you very much for that.
Oh no, it's really, really helpful, isn't it? I wanted to ask you, with regards to the eggs, does it matter how they're cooked? Because people are going to have that thought, unless it's just me. But does it how it doesn't matter if it's fried, boiled, scrambled, poached, does it make a difference to the value of the omega that you're getting?
No, it won't make a difference to the composition, the nutrient composition. The only thing it might make a difference if you're cooking it with a lot of oil is the calories that might be in that meal. So just be careful if you are trying to lose weight, that if you cook your eggs with oil, you'll probably add in an extra 100 calories there to the meal.
Okay. Right, that's helpful to know, because I do like a fried egg, but I do fry my eggs in a little bit of butter.
So one calorie spray oil is the way forward.
No, but it's super
non-stick pan.
Brilliant. Oh God, since that came out, it saved my life. I'm like, oh, one spray. Don't feel guilty. One spray, no guilt.
Yeah, it is really, really beneficial because you even know how many calories you're having then as well. You just can't spray.
I love food. I do, but I do eat a lot of good. Like the only time I do use butter because I won't use margarine. I think that the health benefits to having a bit of butter to the health benefits of having plastic made margarine. But then I also appreciate and understand that obviously if you're on a budget, you do need to sort of cut your cloth to how it's made. And I always do have a bit of margarine, but I tend to bake with that a lot more. But yeah, you can't beat a bit of butter. And the last thing I wanted to ask is, just as you were talking about sort of foods and things, there's been this big debate about whether or not you should be steaming your food or boiling your food, or what would you say would make it, is it, obviously not everybody's going to be able to get a steamer, and especially if they're looking to start eating more nutritionally, they may not be able to afford to rush out and go and buy a steamer. So, sort of what would you say to those people?
Okay, everybody who's worried about this, who's worried about steaming, boiling, microwaving, oven cooking, oh my goodness, it is so insignificant. It does not change the nutrient composition of the food. Like, honestly, it is fine. The difference between steaming and boiling is so insignificant. I think steaming might be marginally like better, but what it's worth is not even worth thinking about. So when you're cooking, for example, your vegetables, the only thing I would say is that if you overcook it to the point where your broccoli is like mush and you can't really even like hold it together anymore, then that has a slightly reduced nutrient sort of profile. But for what it's worth, between the different types of cooking is not even worth worrying about. So definitely don't spend time worrying about that sort of thing.
That's amazing, because I think that's, it's all of the questions I'm asking you are all these little things that, people that are going to be listening going, well, I can't afford a steamer. And they say that you should, that by boiling my vegetables, I'm taking the nutrition away. So what's the point of buying
If
vegetables?
you're really overcooking it, then it can reduce the nutrient profile of it. But between the different types of cooking, it is barely even worth worrying about. I think one of the easiest and quickest ways is just to microwave things. And there is no harm in that. There's been loads of studies done with, is it safe to microwave my food? And really there is not a problem microwaving your food.
It's amazing. Anything you want to say?
Yeah, I think one more thing I was just going to touch on is something that a lot of people, it's very common, have a problem, especially at the moment when they're stuck in the house and they've got access to the fridge 24/7, is emotional eating. So sometimes people can turn to food because they're feeling stressed or they're feeling worried or anxious, especially, if your mental health isn't on point, then you might subconsciously turn to food to try and overcome that. But the food is not going to solve that problem. And a lot of people realize that after, and they don't feel any better, and they know it doesn't solve the problem, but subconsciously they're just eating more for the sake of it. And I just wanted to touch on, tips for emotional eating. So things like knowing what your triggers are, what is it that causes that, and it's actually finding the root cause of the problem that can really help overcome it. And once you find out what your triggers are, then you're going to be aware consciously of them. You're not going to subconsciously eat the food because you're aware of what you're doing. And a tip that I tell my clients, because I'm working with someone at the moment who has this problem, and she is doing so well, like she's practically like overcome every time now that she knows what her triggers are and she recognizes it, is she doesn't end up having that binge that she used to have, because she has a little tick list of things that she follows. So she'll have a full glass of water, she'll go for a 5-minute walk, and she'll go and, I can't remember what the other thing she does is, like write down how she's feeling. And by the time she's done those 3 things, she realizes, actually, I'm not even hungry anymore. I don't need to eat that food. So just little tips like that, knowing your cues, can really help. But I just wanted to touch on that because I know it's really common, and people kind of have the problem and they don't think it's that common and they're embarrassed to talk about it, but it is not anything to be embarrassed about at all. And it is such a common thing. People probably don't realise that it is something that I really help my clients with.
That's amazing, and that's going to feed into the final bit of the episode, is where I'm going to talk about having a safety plan and talking about your triggers and looking at those sorts of things. So I'm really glad that you've sort of brought that up, because it kind of also then sort of solidifies what I'm going to be talking about a little bit later on. The last thing I just wanted to ask you about is, I'm not a top, like Joe Wicks, I love you, and if you're listening, I'm a bit sort of like yay, but I can't do you. I just, there's no ways. Like, I'm either going to break something not be able to walk, or I might have a heart attack. So there are sort of, you know, a lot of people that are kind of like, well, the only sort of exercise that seems to be there that you can follow are very focused on sort of people who are able to do a PT session. But you know, there are people with mental health that are really struggling, and when you're in that sort of crisis place, even just getting up to make a drink, it feels like you're running a marathon. So, you know, you've got those things. You've got people who have got sort of fibromyalgia or sort of different disabilities. Can you give a sort of an idea of what people can be doing that are perhaps not the Joe Wickses of the world, just to get their circulation moving? And obviously, you know, we are in lockdown, and you know, people can't go to the gym, but I'm sure those people have already got a plan. But you know, I'm talking about the everyday person.
Yeah, completely. Like, everybody is on completely different levels when it comes to their fitness and their capabilities and their fitness levels and what their body can allow them to do if they're injured or they're not well or they're mentally drained and they don't feel like doing anything. Everyone is on a different kind of starting point. Now, exercise is so beneficial and so underrated. So it actually releases endorphins and serotonin in the brain when you exercise, and that is instantly going to uplift your mood and make you feel better. Now, for people that can't really get up and do the Joe Wick style, you know, bouncing around jump squats workout, does not mean that they can't exercise and they can't be active. And people think, again, it's the mindset of, oh, well, if I can't do it like that, then I'm not going to bother at all. And it is not the attitude to have. Going for a short walk, even just being active around the house, doing some chores, doing some housework. You know, the fact we can go outside now and we've been told we're allowed to exercise is just such a ticket to get out there and do some, you know, just low level and nothing strenuous, but just low level exercise and low level steps. And walking has been proven to increase your sleep quality, your mood, your well-being, your feelings, your thoughts, everything. And just getting that blood flowing around the body is so beneficial. So for people that can't get up and do the Joe Wicks workout, just get up and walk around the house. Just get up a little bit more, like maybe every time that you know you get up, maybe walk somewhere specifically, take the stairs, do that a little bit more when you're going around the house, and maybe just setting, like, you know, a target, like just small steps. So I'm going to go on a 10-minute walk daily. And it's just those starting points. It's making a start and setting little things in motion and creating habits. Because I think when things feel like a chore, that's when the mindset is that you don't want to do it. But creating habits, that's something that you kind of subconsciously do, and it doesn't feel like a chore. So if you get up every morning and you go for a 10-minute walk and you make it part of your daily routine, you're not going to feel it's like on a tick list thinking I've got to go on my walk today. If you do something called habit stacking, I like to call it, find a good habit that you already have, that you do every day without even thinking about it. And at the same time as you do that one, you're going to stack it with a new one, and it will become molded into like the same habit as you go forward. So for example, like brushing your teeth, you do it every day. So maybe after you brush your teeth, you're going to go for a 5-minute walk. You might only go around the block, but you do it every day, and it's going to be something that you don't really think about in the end because it's just part of your day. And it's just so beneficial to have those, you know, little habits in place, those healthy habits. And it's about replacing as many of, well, I say bad habits, but, you know, trying to incorporate as many healthy habits into your day as you possibly can. It's going to lead to a very, very healthy body and healthy mind. And just that bit of exercise as well that you do, like for me, if I go on a walk, I just feel like it's my little time away from the world. I don't need to think and worry about things. It's just my time when I'm exercising. And just that, well, it might not be 5 minutes, but, you know, half an hour that I'm exercising, it's like that mental break from the continual thoughts that are pumping into my head. And exercise can be like that for people. It can benefit you and allow that, just that break from real life, really, and take you away into your own little bubble. I just love the feeling of, you know, really getting that sweat, and you just feel like you're not even thinking about anything else because you're just focusing on the pain and your breathing. But it is about being in the moment, and it brings you to the present moment as well. You can't really think about much else when you're actually trying to focus on your breath and you're thinking about what you're doing at that point in time. So honestly, the benefits of exercise are completely endless. And I know at the moment a lot of people feel socially disconnected because we're kind of on lockdown, we're at home, we don't have that human interaction that we're used to. But now online, there are so many ways to connect with people and do online exercise classes. Now, for people that aren't going to be jumping on a Joe Wicks class, does not mean that there are not classes that are online that are suitable for you. There's things like yoga. That is one of the most beneficial things I would recommend. I do it myself. I go on YouTube and there is so many yoga, like beginner yoga, intermediate, whatever level you're at. You don't need to be starting at an advanced level. You can start at a beginner stage, and there's so many things like that that you can connect into, and it's going to help get your heart rate up, or just do that low level exercise. Whatever level that you're at, you can definitely do something.
I love
something, isn't it? Something at least, rather than nothing.
I completely agree with everything you've just said. Like, I do yoga, and how I feel is amazing afterwards and stuff. And I love the habit stacking. It's them little changes that make a big difference. I saw you start writing there, because I was like,
did, yeah.
Is a brilliant idea.
Yeah, honestly, habit stacking, I do it myself. Like, when for people that haven't got a lot of time, it's really beneficial to try and fit things in. So I like to do daily gratitudes, and I'll write some things down, like, you know, on a sticky note, and then I can read them. And I have the sticky notes on the mirror where I brush my teeth, so I know that when I'm brushing my teeth, I'm thinking of my daily gratitude, and then I can write it down there, so it gets done. And I'm not even really thinking about it because I don't have to remember, because I just do it when I brush my teeth. So it just happens at that point.
It's lovely, I like that.
Beautiful.
Right, well, thank you very much, Kelsey, for joining us on our episode today.
I could talk forever about this subject.
No, it's brilliant. I can feel the passion, and it's making me feel passionate, and it's brilliant to have someone like that on here. So
yeah,
we will definitely be putting on your details on the near the podcast, so then people can get in touch with you. So do you want to do a little bit of self-promote quickly, so then people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, of course. So I think Vanessa's going to connect a link to my LinkedIn and my website for people to jump on there. I do offer mindset coaching just on its own, on a standalone, but usually it's tied into all of my other packages. So my packages include nutrient coaching and training, and then my full transformation package, which includes everything. But every single one of my packages includes mindset coaching alongside it, because I think you cannot possibly have one without the right mindset to go with it. Definitely, it's just something that you can't do.
Thank you so much for your time. You've inspired me, and you're going to inspire a lot more people. Definitely.
Oh, I hope so. I really do.